kind of do a, yeah, tragically, volunteered to do a kind of Ask the CISO session. So Joe is a accomplished security professional, and he's going to kind of bring up a topic.
Accomplished
and then
being a sort of
he's
loosely used terminology.
yeah, loosely used,
Okay.
professional. But you know, he's going to bring up a topic, and then if you guys have questions, I'm going to be available with a microphone going around to everyone. Kind of bring up issues that kind of affect your organizations today, or affecting other people's organizations, or just hot topics. So think about those questions. But at first, Joe's going to bring up an issue that we've heard about today.
So one of the issues that was brought up at one of the panels was whether the current conditions within the financial services market will cause an increased security threat to those firms that are experiencing them. So based on my previous experience within the merger world, the world of mergers and acquisitions within financial services, my inclination would be that based on, you know, the information that banks consider sensitive, the reality is, in a situation like the one we're in now, there's going to be an increased risk of you know, data loss, specifically data leakage, and concerns around how to protect what banks consider to be proprietary, secret information. Now, that said, it's an interesting situation when an organization is declared bankruptcy. What does that mean in terms of protecting data, and who's benefiting from that effort?
Can you talk a little bit about the specifics of where that risk comes from?
Sure.
Should I ask, can you talk a little bit about the specifics of, you know, where does that risk come from?
Yeah,
Who's the attackers, and what are we thinking about here?
It's a strange, I guess, phenomenon, but in the situations where you're talking about, in these situations, there's no real attacker per se. It may just be employees acting at their own sort of for their own benefit, with due cause, right? There's a reason for them to do that. Unfortunately, the organizations, the banks, or any employer their interests may no longer align with that of their employers, in some cases former employers. So you're seeing a lot of people walking out of buildings with boxes of materials. What are they taking with them? Is that something they should be taking? There's sort of and the reality is, large organizations particularly have a difficult time creating inventories of assets and information. So oftentimes it's difficult to know till after the fact what exactly has been taken, and if there is any exposure as a result of that.
Sure, and I think that, you know, this topic was brought up by someone who kind of sounded a little bit doomsday, and was saying, you know, all these people are leaving or think they might get fired one day or laid off. Maybe they're building things into the code, or maybe they're building, you know, kind of some remote access type, reverse kind of access into the environment, or some backdoor. So, you know, that's something to think about. I think there's a potential for that.
Anytime you have a very traumatic experience, it increases the chance of good people, good employees, doing not necessarily good things. It's hard to categorize it as hacking. I mean, because we think about that as in a negative context, and these things can be less intentionally negative. Copying your personal address book, though, may seem pretty benign to most of you, may to a banking organization, if you're a commercial banker who manages relationships for them, that may be what they consider, you know, theft of information and, you know, proprietary information. So it really is how you categorize these things. And I know, because I've seen banks respond. As an employee, I've been involved in situations where people were being accused of stealing, and there was lawsuits filed for just copying, you know, address books and taking client rosters with them out of the bank, which they were their clients, so they had a right to do that, I would think. But it depends on, you know, your perspective, I guess, on the thing, right? So you got a question?
Sure. I'm going to bring the mic.
I guess another phenomenon is that the financial companies right now are scrambling to put up new images or new applications that address new markets, because they've been you know, basically told to realign themselves in different ways. In cases, you know, in my case, Lehman Brothers and Barclays merging, that's going to mean, you know, taking applications that are on either side and rebranding them,
Right.
possibly putting them in new environments
Right.
where unexposed threats now suddenly become relevant. And other cases where new businesses are coming about because of the recategorization of banks like Goldman and
Absolutely. I mean, and those kinds of considerations, specifically that scenario where you sort of have to reintegrate or, in some cases, disintegrate existing systems, there needs to be considerable attention given to protecting the data that you're either going to reuse or, in some cases, becomes legal. The data that you may be dealing with may become legal record in a hearing or something else. You really want to make sure that you protect the integrity of the data that you're dealing with. So it becomes even more, of a pressing concern for the organizations in some regards. Now, I'm also hearing a lot of people telling me that they're being this is sort of another aspect of this topic, that the financial services effects of the sort of crisis, whatever you want to call it, crisis, if you want to label it that way, are causing organizations, not just banks, to reduce their staff in information security, which I think is somewhat tragic, but I guess they see those services as somewhat, I don't know, what was the term? Costly? Yeah, or I mean, almost you would have to label them as, they see them as ancillary to the core business, as support functions that are no longer needed. But that to me is shocking. I mean, one friend was telling me that he was a sort of a single contributor, a security officer at a large entertainment company, and the sales were down, so they laid him off. I mean, this company is a very well-known organization, one of the largest entertainment companies in the U.S., and to think that they would basically abandon their security position just because of a cost reduction seems a bit short-sighted to me, and I think it's a very unfortunate result, and that's where I think some of the real collateral damage is things like that. I mean, security as a effort will continue beyond the financial services crisis. In fact, if we had more controls within financial services, we may have been able to offset some of the damage of the current crisis. So I hope that we don't just fall right into the same trap again by setting ourselves up for another bad situation.
Yeah, and I think that, based on the things that I've seen and the people that I spoke to, I don't see that being a widespread thing. I don't see organizations kind of trimming off their security budgets. I do see kind of overall trimming of budgets, but it's affecting everyone equally. So, if they're going to be trimming off their development budget, they may not need as much security, for example. So, these things, and of course it's affecting, select or one specific area, which is the financial services.
Yeah, but I mean, financial services permeates everything. I mean,
but it does,
if you can't get a loan to expand your business, then that's going to impact. You have a question right here.
Sure.
And then this gentleman as well. Yeah, so let's hear some hard questions. I mean, don't ask me very technical questions. I'm just going to pass the mic to Jeff so he can answer them.
Hello. So